This is Hand of Fate 2, the follow-up to the quite highly acclaimed Hand of Fate. Coincidence that, isn't it? It is really good. It's more than good, it's great, in fact. If you're a fan of RPG things, if you're a fan of card games, if you're just a gaming fan, this is a really good game to try. It's not going to be to everyone's taste, but I think more people will like it than not, if that makes sense. It's got pretty gorgeous graphics, to be honest. Simple, but they work for what the game is, which is a simple game. The premise is pretty simple. It's a card game, a sort of choose-your-own-adventure type thing like that. And there's, aspects of randomization. It's not going to be the same story every single time. You have encounters that have multiple outcomes that can reward in food, in health, in coin, or it can reward in weapons, armor perhaps. Or it might just take away loads of your health and you end up dying. The one iffy thing about this game, because honestly I want to give this game a 10. In many ways it deserves a 10 because it is that good. It is really good, and there are not many games I've played in my lifetime that I've thought, this is a perfect game. And I've played a lot of games, but this is one of them. The one thing that is stopping me from giving it a 10 is the combat. And there is quite a lot of it in this game. Most encounters end up with some form of combat. You're fighting either a sort of the Empire, sort of northern, hilly, snow, Viking raiders, thieves, or like these sort of afflicted zombie things. But the problem is, the combat is not tight, it's not sharp, it's a bit wishy-washy, it feels a bit sluggish to do things. It's simple enough, it's, one button for light attack, one button for heavy attack, you have a button to dodge, and then you have a button to parry, and that's it. It's easy to understand, it's easy to get a grip of, but it can be a bit overwhelming sometimes when there's lots of enemies, and that's where the big problem with the sluggish controls come in. It can be tricky to dodge when you have 10 enemies all coming at you. It can be tricky to dodge all the attacks, it can be tricky to parry, it can be tricky just to hit anybody, to be honest, at some points, because you're constantly trying to get out of the way of enemy attacks. And that's the other thing, they do come across as quite mobbish, a lot of the encounters, a lot of the fighting encounters, and the hitboxes are not that great. And again, with the sluggish controls, it is difficult. But it really is the only sort of downfall of this game. If you can get used to it, which by now I must admit I have gotten used to it, but yeah, that's the only bad thing with this game. Or it's not even that bad, it's just irritating, to be honest. Everything else is great. The voice acting, what little of it there is, because there's hardly any, is superb. Again, the graphics, like I said, are decent for what they are, and it can be a bit dodgy because it is Unity, and Unity can be a bit iffy with frame rate and things like that, so when you load into like an event, the game can just sort of slow down to a halt for a couple of seconds whilst it works out what to do, but that's just an issue with the engine. The engine is just a bit like that sometimes. The stories are interesting, the characters are good. They're not sort of the most memorable. In fact, I can't even remember what the name of my main companion psychic person is. He's like a sort of travelling merchant person. Can't even remember what he's called. And he doesn't really seem to have much of an impact on anything, to be honest. He's not even much help in the fighting, which is where you want them to be helpful. He just stands there and basically does nothing. And ends up getting killed occasionally. But yeah, the game is good. I have enjoyed it. There are frustrating moments, but overall it's just a really solid game that's been designed and made really well by a team who you can tell enjoy making this. If they don't enjoy making this game, then they've done a hell of a good job making it seem like they have. It feels like there's a lot of passion and a lot of love gone into this game. And that affects, you know, the way you play it. You feel like you're playing a game that deserves to be enjoyed. It's not like some EA Star Wars Battlefront 2 crap where you just feel the slimy, greedy paws all over it. It feels like it deserves to be loved, this game. And that's sort of my end feelings about it. In terms of score, it is going to be a 9. Like I said, as much as I want it to be a 10, the combat just lets it down just a little bit. It's just not refined to the extent that the rest of the game is. If the combat was fine, didn't have its issues, then it would be a 10. But at the moment, as it stands, it is a 9. Great game, really, really great game, and I recommend it to anyone.
I'm no happier to be here than you lot.